People say, oh yeah, like build curiosity in your titles. Like, sweet, how do you do that?
What is a click trigger?
You can think of it as like, okay, what emotion am I going to evoke in my audience when they read this title? We've got 43 click triggers.
The first one's authority.
Authority is kind of borrowing somebody else's credibility.
Controversy.
That is what kind of gets attention online.
Conflict. Contrast. Conspiracy.
So this one, the person who knows their audience the best is going to have a great chance of winning. If you deliver on the promise that you make in your title, I don't think it's clickbait.
How many titles do you like to brainstorm for one video before you feel like you've given it an adequate shot? 99% of creators do not understand how important titles are to the success of their video. And even if you already think that you're paying attention to the importance of titles, you're still probably missing out on the opportunity for more views and more subscribers if you master this skill. Our guest today on the Think Media podcast is the creator of the Creator Hooks software and newsletter, and he has studied thousands of YouTube titles that have generated millions of views, and he really has distilled down the principles of viral videos that any channel, whether entertainment or education, can apply to their content. In fact, he has created 43 click triggers that can be used in titles. And so on today's episode of the Think Media podcast, as you apply this information, your next video very well might be your best video. And this is going to be simple and easy to understand at a beginner level. But if you're also ready to take your skills to an advanced level, this might be one of the geekiest YouTube podcasts you've ever listened to that's going to help you grow your channel faster. So Jake Thomas, welcome back to the Think Media podcast.
Sean, thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
So this is actually part 2 of our conversation. I want to encourage listeners to check out the show notes and save for later to listen to part 1, because we laid a ton of foundations about titles. But I wanted to kick off part 2 talking about click triggers. You've actually created some new ones. I don't think we're going to get to all 43 in this episode, but we certainly can go through the list. And there's some new ones that have really been surprising to you that are underutilized. So this is some juicy information that really isn't available anywhere else on YouTube right now, which is kind of a rare promise to make, but true. And so give us a big idea here first. What is a click trigger? Why does it matter? Why is it missing from probably most people's titles? What exactly is that?
Yeah, so a click trigger is just like the angle. What angle are we going to take on this title? You can think of it as like, okay, what emotion am I going to evoke in my audience when they read this title? And this is kind of incredible for a lot of reasons. Probably the one of the reasons I love this the most is one, it works really well, but 2, it makes writing a ton of titles really easy. So when you sit down to write a title, you're gonna be like, okay, like why don't we do like how to start a YouTube channel? Okay, how to start a YouTube channel in 2024. Okay, that's all I can think of, right? Like you're for many of us, your title is your title, and it's hard for us to think out of the box. But if you go through a list of click triggers or different list of angles, it's a way easier way to write titles and to write a bunch of them, and then from that, you can kind of decide on, all right, what is the best one? Because if you write 30 titles, you're really going to find out, what you like and what kind of matches your video and what you think your audience is going to like. You're going to find that out way more efficiently and effectively than if you only write 2 or 3. So a quick example might be like, okay, I want to open up a loop. All right, so maybe it's do this, before you publish your next YouTube video. It's like, okay, do this. What do I do? That opens up a loop. It builds curiosity. And it makes people, they have to click and figure out, oh, do what? I need to know what this is before I publish my next video. So that's a simple way to build curiosity. And then also to kind of back it up, we've got 43 click triggers, but it really comes down to 3 click-worthy emotions: curiosity, fear, and desire. And most of the click triggers are just practical ways to build those emotions in your audience's mind.
Gotcha. So what we're talking about here is different angles we could write as far as how we position a video, how we position our title, which might be really expanding for many of us. Because sometimes we look at a blank page, we're like, what do I title this video? We don't only realize that maybe we're trying to come up with one title, but the fact is there's almost maybe infinite ways we could go. And if we narrow that down, there's really powerful ways we could title or position our video. There's decent, mediocre ways, and there's probably some really weak ways. And so just tapping into some of these psychological triggers could be the difference between getting 100 views or 100,000. And so before we dive into these, how many titles do you like to brainstorm for one video before you feel comfortable that before you feel like you've given it an adequate shot? Like how many do you kind of, even if you're brainstorming with your software or people are using AI, how many do you maybe move over and say, okay, these are like my top 5, my top 10? How many do you brainstorm?
It kind of depends on how I came up with the idea. Sometimes I'll see a video that was just that, crazy outlier, did really well for another channel, and it's like, boom, that's it. Like that is what I'm doing.
Mm.
And like it's perfect. You already know you love it. However, sometimes those flop. So I do like to have a couple of backups. I'll write 10, 20, 30, 40 titles, just to, and kind of the less confident I am in the title, the more I'll write. The more confident I am in the title and the angle, the less I'll write. And that might not be the best thing. It's probably best to always write at least 20 or 30 titles, just so you can really kind of suss out what you think is kind of what will make people click and what matches the video well. But yeah, I try to write as many as I can.
That's powerful. So that right there is an unlock for listeners. A lot of times we're trying to come up with one title. Imagine if you wrote 5 or 10 or even 20 titles and then chose the most powerful one, how much more potential your video would have. Well, let's kind of roll through these and just kind of defining what they are. I might hit a couple for speed, but the first one's authority. And so what is authority as a way of writing a title?
So authority is kind of borrowing somebody else's credibility, borrow someone like, their namesake. So there are two different ways to build authority in your titles. So you can use somebody's name. You can say, Elon Musk did blah blah blah. And you're using the authority of Elon Musk, his name recognition, his polarity, what people think of him. So especially if you're talking about like maybe rockets, like Elon Musk's number one number one rule to building rockets. That's probably a stupid side title, but like, okay, like it's not just like the number one rule to build rockets. It's Elon Musk's number one rule to build rockets. So it brings more credibility there, and you're just kind of borrowing his credibility. You can also use somebody's position as well. So you might say the Russian's president, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, that's a bad example because everybody kind of knows who Putin is, but like, you might say, the richest man in the world. Maybe the richest man in the world, exactly who that is, but maybe it's some dude, some old guy who you've never heard of his name, but everybody knows what richest man in the world is. Another example I like was, it was from a YouTube video, is how U.S. military linguists learn languages fast. And like, U.S. military linguists are known for learning languages fast. So that you borrowed that position of them. You didn't say how, John Smith learned languages fast. Like, okay, I don't know who that guy is. That means nothing to me. But by sharing their position, that brings a lot of credibility there.
That's smart. And so it might say something like, you also could say expert reveals. And I've noticed on like a video podcast channel like Diary of a CEO, the powerful insight is if you knew the person, you may have just said this, that you might say Elon Musk is on the podcast and he's on, with Andrew Schultz or something, and he can get a guest of that size. But also what they'll have is they'll have a lot of doctors and lawyers, and like you wouldn't know their name. So they'll say doctor reveals or expert lawyer reveals, and that would be an authority title, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just, it's a really simple way to title your videos so that everybody understands them. I think that might be a big mistake that a lot of people make is they'll drop in somebody's full name and it's like, nobody knows who that person is. They've got a long, first and last name. It's taken up a ton of valuable real estate in your thumbnail or your title. Just, drop their position, their authority position, and it's going to be more exciting for people and easier to understand.
Gotcha. So then the next one is beginners. This could be pretty straightforward. You're targeting those who want to learn a new topic or a skill. and you're calling them out. And anything deeper on the opportunity for beginner content on YouTube?
Yes. So, quick story. I was learning how to play the piano a couple years ago. I was binge watching, I think it was Piano, the piano channel on YouTube. And like later that night, I'm laying in bed and I'm like, wait, what did I just do? And what I did was I watched every video that had the word beginner in it because I was a beginner. I was insecure about my piano playing skills. So I felt like every video was too advanced for me. But if it had the word beginner in it, that was for me. Like I felt like they made that video specifically for me. I felt called out. I felt comforted because I knew it wasn't going to be, too advanced. So it makes beginners feel like the video is made for you. Beginners are the biggest subset in every audience, right? Everybody starts as a beginner. And then there are fewer intermediates and then even fewer experts. But you're targeting the biggest, hungriest, most eager to learn audience when you call out beginners in your titles. And that's why it's so effective.
And an example of this could be complete Python guide for absolute beginners. Start coding in 24 hours. Python is a coding language, a programming language for listeners. And so beginners is now another angle. So you could take the angle of authority, you could take the angle of beginners. Number three is confirms suspicions. This would be validating existing doubts or beliefs. How do people use this one successfully?
So this one is one of the more rare titles, more rare click triggers that I see, but I love it. So the public needs to have kind of a preconceived notion, or a suspicion about something, and then your title kind of hints at like, hey, like what you thought is actually true. So my favorite example of this is a ex Taco Bell employee reveals the truth about Taco Bell's meat. And it's like, oh, we all knew that there was something crazy about Taco Bell's meat, and when ex Taco Bell employee reveals, it's like, oh, I knew it. So you just want to give your audience the chance to say, oh, I knew it. It's hard. It's hard. Those scenarios don't always pop up, but when they do, they can be really fun.
Another example could be, is your phone spying on you?
I love that one.
The companies are all denying that your phone is listening. And yet all of us know, are like, all I know is I was having a verbal conversation. And then the ad I got targeted with was the fact that they're listening to me. I was talking about, I need new jeans. And then jeans were advertised on my Instagram. And so that's confirmed suspicions. And I hope listeners are already connecting. Like, when you start to learn to think this way, you start realizing there's so many different ways to package and position even the content you're going to create. So how often are you trying to nail your title and angle before you press record?
Every time, every time, way before. I mean, there's a lot of benefits. So my process is like, all right, what will people click on? Okay, all right, my audience is interested in this. Let's frame it this way. Let's have we're going to use these click triggers to kind of frame it this way. Okay, boom. Now we have a couple of our titles. Now we make our thumbnail that kind of correlates with that, and now we make our intro that correlates with the title and thumbnail, and we make our content that kind of delivers on the promise that we made in the title. And the cool thing about, we mentioned writing 10, 20, 30 titles. You might be like, oh man, that's a lot of work, but like you're not wasting the titles that you didn't use. You can have them as backup titles. You can use those to inspire thumbnail text. You can use those to inspire your intro. You can use those as like subheadings, throughout your content. You can use those as ideas for your next video. So that list of potential title ideas from a bunch of different angles can go a long way in helping your channel and helping those videos. Yeah, I mean, it's so helpful to know what you're doing before you start recording so that you can deliver on that promise. And if you start with the idea of like, okay, I know people are going to click this, let's make a video that delivers on that promise, your chances of that video succeeding like are incrementally better, exponentially better, not incrementally, exponentially better.
Exponentially better. So if possible, the goal is to write and brainstorm some titles and zero in on the best one out of your list and then let that influence the content. But also, in the reality of, the majority of people listening to this are like, shoot, I've already made that mistake. I actually, once I upload the video, I'm now looking at the blank YouTube title area and like, what do I put here? And what should I put here now? And they're maybe a little late to the game. However, even if you are still at that phase and you didn't pre-plan your title, there's still probably a big opportunity to think about how you might craft and position the video. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's not too late. It's not ideal, but it's also not too late. It's kind of playing the game on hard mode.
Mm.
Um, but because then you got to be like, all right, my video is about this, so I need to make this super interesting. How do I do that? And running through those click triggers, so you have what your video is about, and you can kind of mix and match with all those different click triggers is a kind of the best way to do it. But yeah, it's certainly worth it, but does make it a little hard.
Number 4 is conflict. Is this highlighting opposing forces, challenges, and disagreements to create intrigue and tension?
Yeah, exactly. Just when there's there's conflict, there's kind of two parties, kind of disagreeing. I'm doing the same exact thing that you did with my hands. Yeah, I mean, you might also think about this as like kind of drama. Drama, conflict. People love that. That's what makes a great story. But also, if you include include conflict in your title, you can tell a story in 10 seconds, right? Or you can kind of hint at a big story. And people love conflict. So, a super powerful click trigger there.
So traditional medicine versus alternative healing, or maybe two different groups that are battling out carnivore diet versus the vegan diet. And maybe that's too extreme, although that would be an interesting video. Maybe it's carnivore versus paleo, and someone's really trying to decide between the two. And that versus title, I think media, we love versus. I mean, conflict actually could just be two cameras. It's just versus the Canon ZV or the Sony ZV-E10 versus the DJI Pocket 3. It's really a battle. Like, which one is right for you? It becomes a battle between two products. Are these some different ways you could use it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a battle, and you're talking about specifically versus videos. Like another example is tennis has a serious pickleball problem. There's this conflict between tennis and pickleball.
Mm.
What I learned from my failed coffee shop, there's like, he tried to start a coffee shop. There was some conflict, like he failed, there's just, there's some drama there. Plumbers hate me for sharing their secret. That's another example. Etsy finally has a competitor. Those are just kind of fun ways to just kind of add some drama, add some conflict into your titles.
Whoo! This is that save this video to your, repeat list. Come back if you're driving and walking your dog and grab a notebook so you can write out some of these ideas. Those are some great title ideas. And you're sharing formulas and frameworks that we can plug our own niche and topics into. And that was just on conflict. I imagine in this episode, we're going to get through 10 of these. But number 5 is conspiracy. This suggests hidden knowledge or a cover up. Like maybe the weight loss conspiracy Big Pharma doesn't want you to discover. How else might you use conspiracy? Are you ready to start your YouTube channel, but you don't know where to begin? Or have you been posting videos, but you're frustrated because you're just not getting the views and nobody is seeing them? For a limited time, you can get the #1 best-selling YouTube strategy book, YouTube Secrets, for free at ytsecrets.com. This book is the proven blueprint that has helped thousands of people go from 0 subscribers to a thriving channel. All I ask is that you pay shipping, and then I will mail you the brand new updated 2nd edition of YouTube Secrets. And when you place your order today, there's a couple other super cool things that'll hook you up with. First, you're gonna get instant access to a free deep dive masterclass where I will break down the exact strategy I'm currently using to generate over 120,000 views per day, every single day on YouTube, and generate over $100,000 per month on the platform, as well as the 3 biggest mistakes that most creators make when starting and trying to grow their channel. That class is free to watch instantly when you pick up this special offer. Now, you're also gonna get my video series called The Perfect Video Recipe. One of the updated chapters in the 2nd edition is titled The Perfect Video Recipe. It's actually a formula for how to structure YouTube videos to get maximum views and how to break through in the YouTube algorithm. This is the exact formula that readers of the book and our students are using to generate millions of views. And again, that'll just be included when you jump on this limited offer. Third, you're gonna get access to our 1000 Subs Club email newsletter, which delivers actionable weekly tips to your email inbox that will help you get to 1000 subscribers fast. And we also do really cool weekly giveaways that includes lighting and microphones and YouTube equipment, plus software that will help you on your creator journey. But here's the thing, supplies are limited on this free book promotion. So if you want to grab this offer, go to ytsecrets.com right now and just place your order covering shipping, and I'll get this book in the mail to you right away.
Yeah. So conspiracy is just like, you know, thinking about them, right? What they don't want you to know, it's just kind of, you're kind of sticking it to the man in conspiracy. So like, I got a couple of examples here. The side of China the media won't show you.
Mm.
Um, you know, uh, let's see, like the scam bagged soil companies don't want you to know. There's just some conspiracy, some kind of disagreement there between what mainstream people, or what mainstream media wants you to think, or what the man wants you to think, versus kind of what everybody kind of knows. And it's obviously people love conspiracies, so if you can kind of play that, and that's how it that's why it pays to try to come up with a title beforehand, right? So like you might be talking about like for this title, the scam bag soil companies don't want you to know. You might be like, all right, well let's make a video about all right, bag soil, all right, why bag soil is bad for you. Okay, maybe it's the bad ingredients in bag soil, mistakes people make with their soil. But if you start with like, okay, how would I write this from a conspiracy angle? Oh, like the scam bag soils don't want you to know. It's like boom. Now you can kind of in your intro, you can kind of deliver on that promise of like, oh, this is a crazy scam, versus if you just put like scam in your title, but like there's no mention of a scam in your intro, then people can be
Mm.
like, did I like is this the right video? I think it's the right video, but I'm not really sure. But
And
yeah, so that's why it pays.
if you end up taking that angle and then you really lean into it, you might start your your video off with, even if you just shoot talking head, with even maybe your tone. Maybe you dim the lights. Maybe you play some dramatic music, and then you play into the title because you've defined it ahead of time. This is brings up this idea of, what do you think for the listener that's hesitating from wanting to lean into what you might call clickbait, but also might be missing out on an opportunity for ethical clickbait by saying, okay, well, I don't want to like create or stir up drama. But if in fact you become, sometimes what people call clickbait is just good marketing and good packaging. And if there is something, if you do shine a light in your industry to something, you very well, everybody else in your industry is getting, maybe it's a niche industry, hundreds or thousands of views, and you might have a breakout video from this level of thinking and this level of creating an angle. What would kind of your coaching be for someone to actually basically become better at clickbait and do it in an ethical way?
I potentially a potential controversial take is I think most of us are a little bit too sensitive when it comes to clickbait.
Mm.
There's that. But then if you deliver on the promise that you make in your title, I don't think it's clickbait. If your video is titled "The Scam Bag Soil Companies Don't Want You to Know," and you say, "Hey, here's the scam that bag soil companies don't
It's
want you to know,"
literally
it's not
revealed. Yeah.
clickbait, right? It's like you're literally just describing what your video is about. Um, but you need to kind of start with quote clickbait to think of, all right, what would make for a really cool and interesting video. It's like, wait, well, it's not clickbait if we actually make a really cool, interesting video. So just trying to put a little bit more effort in the front end and thinking, all right, what will people click? What will make for a great video? Now let's deliver on that promise so that we'll have a great title, a great thumbnail, and a great video. And wow, our channel is going to grow because we have great stuff.
Man, this is genius. It becomes kind of like a loop of creativity to where you actually challenge yourself to reach into a much more interesting title, and then challenge yourself to say, can I not? The goal isn't to clickbait and not deliver. Plus, that would hurt my brand. The goal is actually to then live up to that in terms of research, content development. Now it's influencing my content, which then loops back around to perhaps how could we tweak the title even further? And so applying these principles, man, there's so many views waiting for creators on the other side of implementing what we're learning here. Okay, number 6 is a constraint. Explain what this is.
So constraints make videos so much more interesting, right? So it might be like, I walked 100 miles in the desert. It's like, okay, cool, good for you. I walked 100 miles in the desert with no water. Oh, sweet. I walked 100 miles in the desert with no water and no shoes. Like, dang, like this is actually getting crazier and crazier just because we're adding a constraint. So especially if you're talking about challengers or how did you do something, how did you accomplish a really cool goal with a constraint? So one people might identify with that constraint. It's like, oh, I also, how I got 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, being camera shy. It's like, okay, like I'm also camera shy. Like I identify with that constraint, but also how did you do that? Because that's like really hard. Like wouldn't like shouldn't you be like really charismatic if you're going to be on YouTube? So
Mm.
it adds another level of challenge, of kind of builds intrigue. So kind of the easiest way to build a constraint is to use the word only. So how I started, how I got 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, using only my phone.
Mhm.
So that's a constraint that makes it interesting, but it's also you're talking about a really cool desire. You're talking kind of leaning into what your audience wants. So those are all kind of fun ways to just make your videos more interesting.
So, how to achieve a result in a limited amount of time or with a limited amount of resources, like maybe how to build a reselling business in just 30 minutes a day, or how to earn $1,000 a month reselling in just 30 minutes a day, not a specific result. So, achieve result, limited time, resources. Number 7 is contrast. This might type into verses a little bit when we talked about that conflict, but what's the difference between conflict and contrast, which is our 7th click trigger?
So conflict is when there are kind of two parties that disagree, or you're trying to do something and there's like a big barrier. Contrast is when you pair opposites together, and that is one of my favorite ways to build curiosity. So
Mm,
like people say, oh yeah, like build curiosity in your titles. Like sweet, how do you do that? The first thing that most people do is they try to ask a question, but there are a bunch of different ways to tactically build curiosity, and contrast is one of them. So like an example is how the most underrated high school recruit made the NFL. It's like, wait, underrated high school recruit, NFL, ton of contrast there. Like
mm,
that doesn't make sense. The simple productivity system made me $100 million. It's like, oh, wait, simple productivity, $100 million, total opposite, does not make sense. Mr. Beast's series about $1 versus like $1 trillion yacht. There's contrast between $1 yacht and $1 trillion yacht, and that series got him like literally a billion views just by using contrast. That's the kind of the
mm.
power of click triggers. What we're talking about here, is like literally one concept made got a billion views for one channel. So yeah, when you're thinking about contrast, okay, think about how can I pair two opposite things together that kind of don't make sense. It's really similar to counterintuitive, which might be your next one. But
Mm.
contrast and counterintuitive are very similar, and just thinking about pairing opposites together that don't make sense, so the user has to click and figure out like, all right, what's happening here.
And the greater the gap, the better is kind of what I hear you saying. Like the greater the gap you can create, like, wow, that's quite a spread.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so another one is like how this dumb product made $1 million. Like the dumb product, like $1 million, total opposites, lots of
Mm.
contrast there. Just really thinking about pairing opposites, and I agree with you. If you can, if there's a lot of difference in the two products, then or the two concepts, then yeah, they're probably going to do better.
Amazing. Okay, so yes, and then after contrast number 8, actually, I have controversy.
Ooh,
Addresses disputed or debated topics. Break it down.
yeah. So controversy is kind of a easy way I like to think about controversy is just disagreement. It's like, all right, what do people disagree on? And a lot of us don't love controversy because we don't want to be disagreeable, right? So maybe maybe I'm like projecting my insecurities on other people, but like I want people to like me. I'm a people pleaser. I don't really want to be controversial. However, people pleasers Like that doesn't make for a great YouTube title. Polarizing, bold opinions, controversial opinions. That is what kind of gets attention online. And if you want to play the game, that is one move you can make. So all these click triggers are different moves that you can make. They're not. I'm not saying you have to be controversial. I'm just saying if you want, it's an angle to take. So for example, Adobe is horrible, so I tried the alternative. It's like, wait, Adobe is like awesome. Like not everybody agrees that Adobe is horrible. That's kind of a controversial take. I thought the Spotify top 10 couldn't get worse. For some people they agree with that, but for other people it's controversial. So you're bringing in some drama and saying like, hey, like this is what I think about this thing. And then another ones are like, while Tolkien hated Disney, there's a little bit of like controversy of like these
Mm-mm.
two. That's a little bit of conflict as well. And some of these are bleeding into each other. But if I have 43 of these different click triggers just to kind of help you think about things a little bit differently. And a lot of them, there's a ton of overlap. Many of these titles have 3, 4, 5, 6 different click triggers. But if you think about, okay, let me write this title from a controversial standpoint, then that kind of tells your brain, like it kind of prompts your brain to think about it from a different angle, from a controversial angle. So another one is, I believed this lie about Jesus for years. It's like, I think there's like that's
Mm.
there's a lie. That's a pretty controversial subject there. So just trying to prompt your brain. If you think about AI, trying to prompt your brain to think about things differently.
That's really great. And probably the most basic way to do it is you could say something like the controversial truth about organic foods you need to know. But that would be
Yeah,
actually be using the word, whereas some other ways you can maybe do it better is you're making like a bold statement, like remote work is dead, why the office is making a huge comeback, or the metaverse is a flop, it's failing in what's next, or AI is overrated, why human creativity will always rule. You go into
yeah,
all of these things. Influencers are the new celebrities. Traditional fame is over. Fast fashion is a crime. Great word. Why sustainable style is the only way forward. And so crypto is a scam. The bubble is about to burst. People are getting triggered as they're listening to this. Social media is toxic. It's time to disconnect. So thinking about, and then if you tie that into maybe your convictions, or I think what really good content creators do is sometimes good journalists are already using these titles. You could react to an article and it doesn't mean you agree. So you actually title your video and you go, so the New York Times just said that the 9 to 5 grind is obsolete and the future of work is actually flexible. In this video, we're going to see, is that true? And I'm going to prove or disprove that. So you're maybe tapping into click triggers, you're maybe tapping into trends, and you're then packaging some really powerful content by understanding how you can really, grab human psychology with the way you're positioning and packaging your content.
yeah, definitely. I kind of reacting to controversial stuff is awesome. That's a great point.
Okay, we're only going to do 10 today, so we have 2 more, and counterintuitive is the next one. You mentioned that a little bit earlier. That's number 9.
Yeah, so counterintuitive is it's counterintuitive, counter to what people are thinking. There is a kind of an underlying assumption here that what your audience is thinking. So in order to do all of this, to use all these click triggers, you need to know your audience very well. You need to know what are they thinking that is controversial. You need to
Mm.
think, what are their desires? What are their current beliefs, their current excuses, their current false beliefs. You need to know your audience really well to write good titles. And I don't think people talk about that enough. Is you just the person who knows their audience the best is going to have a great chance of winning, or a better chance of winning. So, and if you know your audience really well, you'll be able to apply these more effectively. So when you're counterintuitive, you're challenging their assumptions. You're being counter to what most people are thinking. When you write a counterintuitive title, people are like, wait, like, hold on, is this true? They kind of double take, and then they think like, wait a minute, I need to click this video. I need to see what's going on here. Um, uh, an awesome one is the luxury fashion is for broke people.
Mm.
You're pairing. It's very similar to contrast, but it's like, wait, like how is luxury fashion for broke people? How this guy, how he became a billionaire working a normal job. I think I'm botching that. That was from Noah Kagan's channel. How to run fast at a low heart rate. It's like, no, like when you're running fast, you have a high heart rate. Like it just doesn't make sense. And especially if you're how to run fast at a low heart rate, you're kind of tapping into desire there as well, because the audience wants to run fast, but they're talking about a low heart rate, and it's just so counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. So people have to click and find out, and that's another very tactical way to build curiosity, is to just challenge your audience's assumptions and write a counterintuitive title that goes against what they think.
So you're saying why a common belief for your audience is actually the opposite, like why working less actually makes you more productive. I think about um, for content creators and for aspiring YouTubers and those creating content, there are a lot of common beliefs that are actually myths. I need expensive equipment to succeed. No, a lot of people succeed with just basic equipment or even a smartphone. I need to go viral to be successful. No, it's sometimes about getting the right views, not just more views. More views equals more money. No, again, the right views can make a lot more money than a lot of views, and also depends on your business model. I need to post content every day to grow my channel. I actually saw the smart move in, say, the YouTube education space was somebody who said, the thumbnail text or the title was something like, consistency is actually YouTube, being consistent on YouTube is bad. Or you might have saw that one. And because everybody is just like, yeah, the key is to be consistent. You got to be consistent. In my book, YouTube Secrets, literally one of the C's is consistency. And of course, in the midst of sharing these, it's kind of like, I think you can make these truths or you could bring these up and back up the statement without, while both things being true. Because obviously, like if you're some level of consistency is absolutely required. Because if you don't keep
Yeah.
posting, but there are channels that they get away one upload a month, sometimes one upload a quarter, and thus that's very counterintuitive to the plight that most content creators are on. And so it's a very powerful question to say, okay, what are some of the common beliefs in your industry? And you said it right. We say the same thing. The creator who understands the viewer best wins, which would be a whole nother side of being able to, when brainstorming, whether you're just doing this from listening to this episode and taking notes, writing down some of these titles, whether you grab Jake's software, which we'll link to in the show notes as well. It's super helpful. It's just all of these click triggers, and it'll help you do it. But still, man, you've got to be a student of your community, a student of your audience, understanding their pain points, what keeps them up at night, what are their desires, what are their fears, what are their aspirations, who else do they know, what names would they recognize, what trends or brands would they recognize, what things would be irrelevant to them. All of that data is really going to give you an edge. That's why the creator who understands the viewer best wins. We're going to hit number 10 in just a second, but let's do a full roll call on your stuff first, and then we'll finish out with the last one. And I do want to say, we hopefully could get Jake back at a future time, because we just minted a new mini series on the Think Media podcast. We'll go through all 43 of these click triggers. We got through 10, so it'll probably take us at least 3 more episodes, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about. So if you are on the YouTube version, let us know if you would like us to bring Jake back on to get through all 43. Assuming that's happening, there'll be a playlist in the show notes. And I don't know if we could do audio playlists. So audio, you might want to visit the video version and check out that playlist link where we will gather all those episodes. And foundationally, previous to even these 10 click triggers that we're hitting in this episode, there's a foundational episode that is a much listen next as soon as you're done with this one. And so again, on the Think Media podcast, check out the show notes wherever you watch or listen. But Jake, shout out some of the resources you have before we get to the 10th click trigger of the episode.
Yeah. So on socials, Twitter and LinkedIn, search Jake Thomas. You'll see me, hat, beard, and a cute golden retriever. That's me. Creator Hooks is a free newsletter, and I break down kind of 5 videos, kind of 5 viral videos and why they worked. The why they work section is the click triggers. Essentially, it's like, here are the 3, 4, 5 click triggers that these titles used, right? And then I kind of share how you can use that for your channel, and I share kind of if we format, like if we took the framework of this, here are some other ways we could use the same format and use the same title, kind of get you inspired. So yeah, frameworks are the click triggers are in there, and then I have Creator Hooks Pro, which is a title generator that does all these click triggers for you, right? I love that. When I write titles, I write them for each click trigger to help me think of a bunch of different angles. The software does it for you, so it's really fast and easy, and it'll actually help you think about your title from different angles and like different ways, and help you get inspired to kind of get out of your head and defeat blank page syndrome, and and put down a bunch of really good title ideas, and get the wheel spinning there.
So you can check those out in the show notes. Definitely sign up for the free newsletter. And if you want to grab the software as well, if you're a serious YouTube creator, Click Triggers is a software that I use. We are probably an affiliate for that by the time that this video comes out. But that's been something I've been paying for with my credit card for like a year now. And it's one of my favorite softwares. And so love collaborating with Jake. We've known each other for a couple of years. And again, you don't need it, but it is a tool in your tool belt that does give you an unfair advantage. By just learning these skills, you can make so much progress. But as you start to, let me just encourage you, reinvest in your YouTube business, especially once money's coming in. Reinvest in the best tools, reinvest in education, because there's massive opportunity, and small tweaks lead to giant peaks. A change of a title, a change of an angle, it actually is kind of overwhelming. Like it is for me. I'm like, man, the video did 75,000 views. I probably could have done 150. Or like, what did I miss? It's small details make a big difference. And so if you want to check out that software, there's a link in the show notes. Number 10 is credibility. And this is establishing trust through proof. Like you said, some of these overlap, but kind of what's the difference between authority and credibility, and define credibility for us?
Yeah, so authority is using somebody else's position or their name. Credibility is kind of proving that you did the work. Proving why you are worth listening to. So one example is, I'm 40. If you're in your 20s, watch this. It's like, okay, you establish credibility by saying that you're 40. Your experience, you have, you've been to where I currently am. Now I want to listen to you because you know what it's like. You've been there. 10 years of YouTube advice in 10 minutes. That was kind of a trend that's popping around a lot. And it's like, hey, like I have authority, I have credibility here. Like I have, I've been in YouTube for 10 years, right? Time frame is a very simple way to build, or just like dropping your experience and in how many years you have experience is a really simple way to build credibility. And then also just kind of sharing like experiments. So like I paid 5 designers on Fiverr to create a book for the same cover. It's like, it's not like, here's what I think about, about this, this design. It's like, I actually did something. This is like credible. This isn't just my opinion. I invested $5 a day for 2.5 years. Here's what happened. It's like, okay, like this isn't just like some random dude sharing, just like kind of, sharing his thoughts on investing. He actually did something. This video has credibility because he's sharing the results of his experiment. And especially when we get in, AI is only becoming more prevalent. Authenticity and credibility, I think, are going to be the 2 biggest drivers for, are you successful on YouTube or not? I could look up, so I had elbow tendonitis. I could look up on ChatGPT, how do I fix my elbow tendonitis? And like, cool, I might get an answer. Or I could look up a physical therapist on YouTube, how to fix my elbow tendonitis. He's got credibility and authority and authenticity. He's a real person. So I just feel so much better watching getting my answer from a credible person, than I do AI kind of giving me an answer. So credibility, proving that you did something or why you're worth listening to, is a great way to get people's interest and get people's belief in your content and to get them to click.
You know, it is interesting because there's kind of a little known secret of how Google determines what content gets ranked and how what content should be surfaced in search. Of course, Google owns YouTube, and it's the EEAT formula, which is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Like you said, with AI just pumping out a bunch of information, when somebody's hearing from a real human experience, they're 40 years old. Expertise comes with that. You've lived the 40 years. Authority, you've got the degree or you've got the, and then trustworthiness, because you're also a real person and not maybe just repackaging information from various blogs and videos. Man, that's so interesting that people will be looking for credibility and that'll be what is getting ranked. I just want to throw a couple tests at you. If we had a title like Dermatologist Reveals Truth About Anti-Aging Creams, would that be credibility or authority or a mix?
So I probably a mix. I would probably say authority just because it's very clear authority. It's very obvious that it's authority, but it's, you could certainly, consider it as credibility. I might say for credibility, I tried every anti-aging cream for, I tried, every anti-aging cream for 2 years.
Mm,
Here's what I learned. And
okay.
you don't have authority because you're not a doctor, but you do have credibility because you actually did something.
Because you've tested. That's interesting. How about this? Scientists prove it. This supplement actually works. Parentheses study linked.
I mean, I probably both.
Mm,
Study brings some credibility, right? I think anytime with doctors, scientists, you definitely have authority there for sure. And for a long time, I didn't have credibility as its own click trigger because I was like, it's the same as authority. But then I started seeing a lot of kind of personal experiments, and I'm
mm.
like, you know what, this needs to be its own click trigger. And that's just it helps me, it helps my software kind of come up with titles from slightly different angles. Because and like we just said, like a lot of these they're kind of the same, but those slight differences help you think about titles from different angles. Even though they're almost the same thing, it'll help you get two extra titles, from this kind of one example. And when we're talking about, it's best if you can write 10, 20, 30 titles, these subtle little differences are really good for kind of helping you nail down what you want to talk about. Plus, if this anti-aging thing, the anti-aging topic, those could actually be like two separate videos. It's like, wow, I like both of those titles. Yeah, and if the first one did well, I'm certainly doing the second one.
That's a great point. In the brainstorming process, you realize it's kind of a couple different angles. One's maybe based off an authority figure. Maybe a celebrity tried the anti-aging cream. You looked at their results. You sort of tapped into their authority. Then maybe one. So would you say if you reference a study, and one of my favorite things to do in the niche is to look for, people do creator economy reports. So I will say, new study reveals the truth about how much people are earning in the creator economy. Is that credibility?
Yeah, definitely.
So the study, and then the study itself is the credibility. And if that title is brainstorm, but there is no such study, well, then obviously that's also a good thing to identify. You go maybe research, you go, oh, that's a very powerful title. Are there studies? Is there anything? It kind of forces you to do your research, and or your reading or your studying of your niche, doing research leads you back to then actually saying, okay, credibility is a click trigger that I could use. Well, 46 minutes into this podcast, I don't know what the edit will be. This was a very dense episode. So don't miss part two, part one. Subscribe. And if you are in the YouTube version, let us know if you want us to get through the other 33 click triggers. If you thought this episode was dense and you love this geeky stuff, we're here to help you grow your channel faster, get more views, get more subscribers. So definitely subscribe, like, rate, review wherever you watch or listen to the podcast. Thanks again for being here. My name is Sean Cannell, your guide to building a profitable YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next episode.